Yeah, so
Even the 44?
no, that's something we're working on. That's actually a project car right now that I'm hoping to run this weekend if there's a four-wheel class. That's what I'd like to run. So it's a fairly heavily modified B44 that I've played around with. That's something we're working on. No real timetable on it. No no promises. No like, oh yeah, you'll see a four-wheel from us in the next.
Yeah, no.
So yeah, that's a B44 that it's actually B44.1, not a .2, that I'm playing around with.
And how much are the kids
So our X6 Cube is kind of our flagship two-wheel drive car. It converts any B4 you want, like basic to the B4.2 Worlds, whatever, fancy big bore shock edition, Cavalieri on the box. So our X6 Cube kit runs $224.99. We have a truck kit. Anybody got their truck here? Stadium truck? No?
Oh, you make one for the
Bueller?
truck.
Yeah,
Okay.
we have a stadium truck.
We have a stadium truck. How much does that run?
$229.
Same kind of thing. The conversion kit, any version T4, T4 regular, T4.1, T4.2, anything, $229. And it's again carbon. All of our stuff is just kind of carbon fiber dual deck, same kind of layout and stuff.
You guys give tranny case, A-arms.
Yeah. So our kits are meant, if you have a rolling associated car, when you buy our kit, you will have a rolling X Factory car. So for instance, in the .2 kits, they changed the outdrives, and they went to a metric outdrive bearing. So our kits come with the appropriate outdrive and outdrive bearings you need, right? What you get in our kit, so I pass around my car, for those kind of familiar with the associated stuff, you recognize the front clip, you just pull off and put on our stuff, it bolts right up. And in the rear end, we make the arms, the tower, the bulkhead, the transmission, the motor plate, like all of that stuff is ours. You put your associated diff in, you put your drive shaft and your rear hubs and your shocks all around and you're done.
Thinking about diffs, which ones do you prefer, the ball diff or the gear diff?
Ball diffs, 100%.
More maintenance, better racing.
Now, this is for two-wheel.
Yeah.
The reason is that ball diffs are inherently quasi traction. And what I mean by that, so think about your ball diff has the balls in the diff gear, right? And your rings grab it. And what allows the diff action? Well, those balls spin freely and the rings can, slide against each other or roll against each other. Ideally, they shouldn't be slipping, right? What happens when you get on the power with the ball diff? Think about it in action. That diff in a micro, if we inspect it closely, that diff gear slams against those balls. And that's a giant brake action on your diff.
The balls stop.
The balls stop rolling, or at least they stop near as much as they would before. So a ball diff, like I said, it's inherently quasi traction. When you get on power, it locks up, which is exactly what you want. And then when you're off power mid-corner, it's free. So you can run when your diff's built right, like it's going to be super free, like easy rotation, awesome mid-corner. And as soon as you pick up the power to get out of it, especially with the torque of a brushless motor, like it locks up and gives you all the bite in the world. And a gear diff just can't do that. Like you can set up your gear diff to be thick, good coming out of the corners, good in the sweeper, but then it's going to suck infield. It's not going to rotate. It's going to be hesitant. You can set it up for the infield, nice and soft and easy and good action. And then it's like, the first time you hit a high-speed section or a sweeper or whatever, it just wants to diff out and feel funky, and it's not going to give you that like super awesome bite coming out of the corner.
My problem is that it gets built good at first and it gets gritty too fast.
What is that your ball diff problem?
No, I'll build a car and it feels awesome. Different.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah.
Then you run them after a while.
How do you
if I'm
break
not
them in?
lubing them enough, I don't break them in. Maybe that's the problem.
There you
right.
go.
So,
And now maybe you can teach me that.
Yeah. So the best way, and this is another Kinwald thing taught me, the best way to break in a diff, when I put a new diff in my car, I get it all ready to go, okay? I put a battery in my car, I put tires on my car, I put it up on my car stand.
Let it run.
Give me the cube.
Trim? Somebody have bump the throttle trim up to like 20, whatever it takes to just get the wheels rolling slightly, okay?
Hold one wheel at a time? Or?
Yep.
No, Paul will do this. He'll
Yeah.
take a tire and he'll shove it under there.
Just shove it under one side.
And that stops
here's the
this
key.
one.
Yeah, so
I
now,
really got it right.
now, you set your radio down and the throttle trim's got it so it's like 20% throttle, and this other tire is just rolling. Walk away. Leave. Set a timer for 10 minutes. Don't come back, because if you come back, you'll want to, right? After 10 minutes, come back, switch sides, walk away. Like, I will break in my diff for up to 30 minutes. And I usually do it in 5-minute segments, so I'll break it in 5 minutes per side, stop it, tighten it up like 1/8 of a turn, and then break it in again. Then stop it, right?
What would ceramic do for me?
Ceramic is not a good option in my opinion.
For balls?
Ceramic thrust bearings are amazing. Ceramic diff bearings are a bad idea, or diff balls. And I'll tell you why. It's interesting. The thrust bearing and the diff bearing, or the diff balls, have completely different roles. The thrust bearing needs to be as free as possible because you're trying to separate. That's what separates the tension and allows the whole thing to work, right? It allows that screw head to rotate with the other side. The center diff balls, actually, you want them to grip the rings as best as, you want as much friction in there as you can get, okay? And with the difference in hardness between a ceramic ball and the carbide ring, it's inherently slippery. Like there's inherently not a lot of friction between those two, like because you have the super hard and the softer material, and you want those materials to be as close together as they can so that they grip each other better. I'm not sure. I gave it away. I took a set of rings, I rebuilt a diff over like Christmas, and actually I gave them, so I'm sponsored by BFast, right? Fred and Brenda, BFast. I took the rings out of my car, and the groove, you know the groove that the balls run in, was probably 80% of the width of the balls. Like it was, I mean, if I held the ring up here, you could see it from there. Like that's how wide that ring was. Because that long break-in process, what you're doing when you break it in, you're letting those balls roll on the surface of the ring, and they're polishing a groove. They're wearing in a groove for them for the life of it. And not only are they're not just making a groove, but that rolling action it's actually a physical process. Like it changes if you were to inspect the grain of that ring under a microscope, like it's smoother and polished.
Yes.
And like the better it fits the balls, the more grip those rings have, and the better overall it is.
Another thing that people do that make a mistake is they put too much lube in their diff.
Yep.
The lube, the purpose of the lube is to make it stick,
So
not to make it roll.
This is the diff I'm going to run this weekend. You can feel it. This is no tires, right? Okay. You know when I built that? November. That's run WRL 3.3. That's run that trophy race I went to down in Nashville. That's run the CRC race, and that's run Reedy. And like I said, I'm about ready to rebuild that. But that's 3 months of hard running, and that's how good my diff feels.
With proper amount of lube, BFast diff rings. It's got, let me brag for a second. It's got X-Factory diff balls in it. And why do you want X-Factory diff balls?
Yeah, why?
Because most diff balls that we know about are grade 25 carbide balls. X-Factory diff balls are grade 10. They are rounder.
It essentially has to do with like how long they finish them,
Yeah.
the different grades. So we pay an extra like 2 or 3 cents a ball, which adds up over 10,000 balls. But like it, you know, they're more.
They're better balls.
They're actually fewer imperfections, is what it is.
And Fred's diff rings are just the most awesome things the world has ever seen. And then break it in right.
I know they're.
Don't put too much lube on it.
I know they're expensive, but BFast is really good. And I'm not saying that because I'm sponsored. I'm saying that because they're good. Although, favorite joke in the world, Brian Kingwald told me, he's like, why did they name it BFast? He's like, I'm going to start a differing company and call it R-Fast.
Oh, that's good.
He's like, you might be fast with them, but you are fast. Bad puns.
One more real quick.
Sure.
You
too.
Ride height.
Ride
there's,
height.
there's a zero, there's zero, and then there's, you know, you get up and
Jacked
down.
up. Yeah.
Like, I was told to test it by squeezing your tires in.
Okay.
And it'll bring your front either up or down.
Uh-huh.
And that'll determine whether you're at 0 degree or, you know, positive or negative.
Mm-hmm.
If you know what I mean. Have you ever heard of anything like that?
I can imagine. I've not heard of it specifically, but I know what you mean. Like you can squeeze them
You
and
squeeze the
it'll either go
tires
up or
in, and
down.
then the car will determine whatever way.
Yeah.
You know, whether you're close to 0 degree. Now, what's recommendation, if any, for
I think
something like
there's a
that?
really easy starting point that I abide by. I hate measuring ride height. Okay, as much as an engineer as I am, as much as I have calipers in my box and I'll measure, you know, like I hate measuring ride height. I do it by eye. And the reason is because as you change inserts, as you change tires, like they're going to be a different, you know, they're going to squish a different amount.
I look for A-arms and drive.
Exactly, exactly. So like, you know, if you look at a setup that Mayfield ran, and he was running these molded foams with, you know, barcode tire, whatever, and then you try to copy his setup with, you know, your AKA tires and a stock foam, whatever, like I'm just making it up, like your ride height's going to have to be different, or else, like if you try to match his number, the number that he measured, you know, the number that you measure, like you're going to have a different setting, like you're going to have a different geometry than he would. So yeah, I look at, the first thing I do when I set ride height is I look at the seam on the arms. Like every arm has like a seam in the middle of it. V4 arms are really nice and easy to see. Like if you have a bent arm car like a 22 or a Durango, like you just have to imagine a line between the hinge pins. That's the best you can do. But I put the car towards me. You know, it's all ready to go. I have the car towards me on the bench, and you drop it from 6-8 inches up. Let it settle.
Oh,
Car,
Yeah, Jim,
no, come on, make it a
you have to
cute.
rebuild your shots tonight, man.
Yeah, it is over there.
It's actually different on 4 wheels, yeah. So you just drop it. You can move it a few times, drop it. You know, by moving it up and down like that, you're just mixing up the oil and air in your shocks. You know, getting them like they'll be on the track. So you drop it, and then yeah, I'll even like get down and like look at those arms head on. You know, and I want to see exactly what you're talking about. You know, are they straight? Are they up? Are they down? And the best starting point is just straight. Arms level is what it's called. And you just want that seam to run, you know, straight across. Then so you can look at the back of the car, right, and that's fine. What I prefer to do is actually look at it sideways. So I've set my front ride height. Then I'll get down and look at the chassis, right, according to the table, and I set the rear to set what's called the rake angle. So like, you know, you're saying you can set it based on the drive shafts, but I like to keep in mind that they influence each other.
So the question is, does he want it like this?
That was not.
Does he
okay,
want it
yeah,
like
right
that?
now.
Or does he
So-
want it level?
Well, on a 2-wheel drive and 4-wheel drive buggies, it probably is a different thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you can't go wrong by saying arms level, chassis level.
Yeah.
Like that's my starting point.
That's what I do.
Okay, is I set those arms level up front, and then I look at it from the side, and I make that chassis even. A lot of like rear motor cars like to have a little lower in the rear, like they like to have that kind of a forward rake, or however you want to
Yeah.
describe it. So our car with a flat carbon fiber chassis, you know, so like there's no step up in the back,
Yeah.
like there is on a lot of cars.
Yeah.
So again, just chassis level is such an awesome place to start.
And you adjust that strictly by spacers or collars?
Or shock collar, yeah, yeah. So,
And that's
You're-
basically all the spacers do is.
correct, they do not change spring rate.
Okay.
Ever. And like, then I'll adjust it like a half turn or a turn, you know, or like one thin spacer, like, so raising up the rear is gonna give you a little bit more rear traction, like it's gonna make that rear end, like it's gonna plunge a little more on power, and it's gonna be, like it stiffens it up a little bit, because you're raising your links a little, you know, like, you get back to that roll center.
Yeah.
And then like lowering the rear is going to make it rotate a little more, like it's going to get a little more corner speed and be a little more like unstable. But if you have the traction to support it, like if your stuff's pushing off the track, like that, you can just lower the rear a half turn or a turn, and it'll make it more drivable. You probably want to fix, you know, whatever the major setup flaw is. But
I tried to make.
You'll see the top racers go out and take warm-up laps, and Mayfield or Cavalieri, oftentimes they'll take a warm-up lap before either a qualifier or the main, and the next thing you know, there's Tilke, and he's giving it a half a turn on the ride height, either the front or the back.
because it's kind of like, I mean, it's the easy thing that you can do trackside to like, all right, my car isn't what I want it to be, you know.
And I've only got 10 seconds to get
Yeah.
it done.
Yeah, you had a question.
I got a lot of questions.
Oh, shoot, shoot.
So, first, I kind of want to make an observation too, like, and then I want to ask some technical stuff, like engineering.
Go ahead.
Okay. So, you got the top 10% of drivers in the world.
Uh-huh.
You keep talking about the Cavalieri, Mansfield,
Mhm.
Drake.
Yeah, yeah.
My
Justin
opinion,
had-
just based on what I'm hearing,
Uh-huh.
because, and just kind of to throw this other thing in there, you're seeing a lot of reboots of vehicles, right? You're seeing
See a lot of what?
reboots of older vehicles, RC10 classics, the world's coming out, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, yeah. History repeats itself.
My opinion,
Uh-huh.
you take these top 10% of drivers and put them in those older cars with obviously new
New,
electronical equipment, new tires, they're still gonna be the best in the world.
Cause it's 50% driver.
Yeah, all right, and I just wanna make that point.
Yeah.
They will still be the best in the world.
Didn't they do that?
And obviously, they're
Well-
running new cars to sell new cars, but they're at such a high level. You know what I mean? They're
Yeah,
just
yeah.
at such a high level
So,
of natural ability,
it's
mental
actually-
stability.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because I got to see Reedy, they just announced their RC10, and then they're doing the RC10 Worlds Edition, right?
Yeah.
Everyone's all excited. And at Reedy, they ran like 2 demo races,
Yeah.
where like Mayfield and Cav had original RC10s. And what's interesting, and what really makes the point interesting, is that Brian Kinwall brought out his 94 Worlds car.
That he had, yeah.
Like stealth transmission, like, you know,
Yeah.
Same one.
Same.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And modern tires and
Yeah,
like, he
changed
set it
over
up,
the-
right? He cleaned their clocks with it.
Yeah.
Like, he was infinitely faster.
Yeah.
And I can tell you,
Like that?
What?
Are they putting the power down like? putting
Yeah,
out
to
these
convert
ones
it to
now?
No.
I mean, no, right?
nobody was. So a big difference was tires. You know, they were running like small rim, big fluffy tire, kind of like truck tires on a buggy almost looking. You know, and they had double Ds, whereas he was running the barcodes that were nicely broken. But like you could just see his car looked better. And then, and this isn't to pump me up, but just to kind of stay where they were, like if I'd thrown my car down there, I would have destroyed them. Like as much as Kinwald was destroying Cav and Mayfield, I would have destroyed them, I would have destroyed Kinwald with a modern car. So we've come a long way. Don't discount the advances we've made,
No,
right?
I'm not, I'm just talking about.
Yeah, yeah. Now there
the-
is,
The very high percentage
yeah,
of
yeah.
pro drivers.
Well,
you
and it's
dominate.
it's funny.
Yeah.
It's this hard scale because like when you reach the top 10%, when you've proven that you're above that threshold,
Yeah.
like there's a company that will let you go to the track 5 days a week.
Yeah.
And so you just get better from that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like it's accelerating difference.
You hang out with that crowd.
Uh-huh, you
What I
go,
think is-
well, and you start, all right, you know, Mayfield back in like 07, 08, went to 42 races in a year, 42 travel races.
Damn.
Right? Yeah. Like, so how, like, in a way, like when you're traveling that much, they all become practice. It all just kind of blends together. And like, you know, his club race was the Reedy race.
Well, it's like I actually seen Hartson improve during these past couple of years.
Mhm.
And now he's hanging out with a better crowd now. And
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So-
Hartson was hanging out with the good crowd
Yeah,
right
yeah,
from
he
the
was
beginning
before,
at OCRC.
Yeah, he was.
So, but I'm just finding, yeah, that top 10% has like this accelerated skill pace.
My overall point though is that all the newer stuff really affects anyone from the first 1% up to that 90. You know, that's where
Uh-huh.
a lot of this really does help.
Yeah,
You know what I
yeah.
mean? Because
Making the cars, you know, more durable, easier to drive,
for your
easier
personal
maintenance.
style, and you got to, you know.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Okay,
Anyway.
another
They're actually
question.
hooking you